You have found Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night at the podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. We are locally underwritten by the Bank of Sun Prairie. My name is James Kademan, entrepreneur, author, speaker, and helpful coach to small business owners across the country. And today we're welcoming / preparing to learn from Nathan Amaral, the international real estate investor. And I love this, the fearless millionaire. So Nathan, how are you doing today?
So good. Great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for being on here. Tell me, What is, when you said international real estate investor, I was like, oh, this gets cooler. So how about we break that down?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it didn't always start as international, but it first started off, started in real estate investing about 15 years ago and starting investing in my local backyard, just my local area, which was Massachusetts and Rhode Island at the time. Mm-hmm. And I did that for about 5 years. And then I relocated a few times. And when I settled in North Carolina, I had a buddy of mine who was doing about, 50 properties a year. And he was doing them all remotely. Like, he never physically went to go look at one of his properties that he was either buying or flipping or rehabbing. And that was really inspiring. Yeah, it was really inspiring. He hired me as a consultant to his business and for an aspect of his business. And then when I started seeing what was going on, I said, well, I know real estate. I've done this. I said, I would love to, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this strategy. So I ended up buying my first property 3 hours away from where I was living in North Carolina without personally ever walking through the property. And of course, we don't have enough time to go into the details of how to do that here, but there's a process to that. And I followed that process. And then I continued to do that. I started doing like 3 hours away, then 6 hours away, a state away, 3 states, 5 states away.
Yeah.
And eventually, I don't know if you can tell, but it's dark outside. And in 2013, I decided to move to Uganda, Africa. And that's actually where I am right now. I'm in Uganda.
Oh, that's cool.
All right. And so I moved out here and I was still doing the business from here, still doing my real estate business in the United States while living here. Wow. And and that had a few challenges along the way. But I figured that out. And then I straightened there to Portugal because I'm Portuguese. So I ended up doing some deals over in Portugal. And that's like the short version of like 12 years of investing in real estate. But yeah, that's where the international stuff comes from.
All right. Well, let's talk about when you first started. Were you flipping or was it buying to build up a rental portfolio?
Actually, when I first started, I was like working 2 jobs. I didn't really have a lot of capital at the time. So what I ended up doing was I hired a coach to help me learn how to start my real estate business.
Okay.
And that coach, what he did is he flew out to Rhode Island and he showed me, the ropes in that area. And what I basically ended up doing was I built a list of buyers that were interested in properties. And then I found the properties that they were looking for. And once I brought them the property, they just pay me a fee in between for, that type of investment property. And these properties were typically run down, abandoned houses. Like you couldn't even find the owner, right? They were just you had to like search for them. So a lot of these properties, these investors would buy them, fix them up and turn around and sell them, and they would rehab them. Mm-hmm. So I did that for a few years. And then I got into some small complexes, duplexes and quads, stuff like that. I started doing a few rentals. When I moved to North Carolina, that's probably when I would say I started doing a little bit more strategic real estate, such as like creative financing on properties. I would owner finance, lease to own. I started doing those remote purchases and whatnot. Virtual is a better way to put it. And then that had started expanding into more commercial apartments, land. Gosh, I'm trying to think of all the different types of deals I've done, but I would say the majority of them have been in residential housing. I had a big connection to veterans. I knew there was veterans and affordable housing. Mm-hmm. I knew there was a lot of people who were struggling with, getting affordable housing, and veterans who were maybe active or inactive military. And I would provide housing for those people around the North Carolina market. So That's really how I got started. I was in my early 20s. I did that for about 5 years in the Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and North Carolina markets.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
super cool. So when you
Yeah.
talking about rehabbing stuff, were you the one putting on the tool belt, swinging the hammer type
I
stuff?
wasn't. No, I wasn't. I did a few rehabs, but I did those like later on in my life. And I did not do any rehabs. I'm not good at that kind of stuff. So what I would
Okay.
do is I would basically buy the property, and if it needed a little bit of work, I would sell it with it needed a little bit of work. So I would
Okay.
sell it to an owner, but in as is condition, and they can fix it up. If it needed like basic small things, paint and carpet and stuff like that, that's not really a big deal. We've done a few of those, but most of the time I was buying properties, either flipping them over
Hmm.
to someone who would rehab it, or I would buy it and then do an owner finance transaction.
All right. So
Yeah.
what at the time were you the owner or your owner financing from the owner you're buying
I
from?
would I would be the owner. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I would buy and purchase with I'd buy and purchase the property, and then I'd turn around and owner finance it to the new buyer. So yeah,
Wow.
I'd buy it with
Okay.
a yeah, I'd buy it as an all cash transaction, and then I would turn around and create a mortgage for them. So
So you're kind of
for the
sticking your
new
neck out there, right?
yeah, I mean basically yeah, it's what I was doing. Basically it's just a long term hold. I mean, what you're in a summary, right, is you're being the bank.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of money in banking. I know I've heard jokes from buddies of mine in the industry. Oh, we're in the wrong business. We should be in the banking industry, the banking business. But the reality is when you're holding the property and you're creating a mortgage for someone, you are the bank for the property because the
Hmm.
property is the asset. So yeah, it's a long-term play. But let me tell you, I think anybody who owns a mortgage, you know that after the time you pay your mortgage off in 30 years, that you have paid 2 or 3 times the house, right?
Oh yeah.
You could have bought
Yeah.
2 or 3 houses. So that's basically the returns that you're kind of looking at when you hold long term.
All
And that
right.
kind of works for my lifestyle because I like to have this more travel, more international lifestyle. So I'm
Hmm.
not one to be like on the site, like rehabbing properties and stuff like that.
Gotcha. I guess the concern that I guess the red flag that comes up with me is if somebody defaults, then you got to go chase them down to get your money kind of thing. Whereas the
Yeah,
bank probably has more tools to do that.
yeah, James, that's a great question. And I'll tell you what, I can't say it hasn't happened. It has. Yeah, it has. We, especially like when COVID first happened, first hit, we had a bunch of that going on. And what we ended up doing was loan modifications. So we
Okay.
initially, like, we took the, position and said, hey, if anything's wrong, let's figure out what we can do. Let's adjust the payments and maybe tack it on the end. So we made some loan modifications to our homeowners. However, when something does default, and I'll just keep this really simple. If someone does default in that situation, I personally don't handle it. All our properties, our entire portfolio, is handled by an asset manager. So if something
Ah,
happens or goes wrong, yeah, the asset manager contacts me and says, "Hey Nathan, here's what's going on. Here's the reports." So I'm not collecting mortgage payments personally. My asset manager collects those for me. Yeah.
nice. So that
Yeah.
alludes to the question, how do you find a good asset manager?
That's a great question. Thankfully, I've only gone through like 3 of them in the past like 10 years, which is great. I
That
think it's
seems like a
pretty good
lot to
because,
me. I don't know.
well, I mean, I look at this as like finding the best accountant for your business. Like it's
Oh,
really
sure.
difficult. Like sometimes you have to go through a few of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I felt like I was really lucky with these guys because the first one, I'll tell you what, having an asset manager they can be really cheap. They can be as cheap as like $15 a month. I don't personally recommend that. I pay a little bit more, so it's a little bit more expensive, maybe
Hmm.
$35 to $40 per transaction. However, I actually have someone who actually gets on the phone with the borrower.
All right.
And I think that's really important. I really do. Some people won't do that. Some organizations won't do that. So I will say this, I do pay more of a premium price for my asset manager, but then again, they get a little bit more of a personal touch on that side of things rather than just a letter in the mail or an email or something like that. So
Gotcha. All
um,
right.
yeah, so you get what you pay for.
Are there with these asset managers? I imagine they have their niches where they're only taking care of a certain area or a certain type of property, something like that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Some of them do. Actually, some of them are really state bound. I would say state
Okay.
bound because they only work in a specific state.
Hmm.
So they have their entire business model in that state. They could send, people to go, start an eviction or anything like that, whatever their processes are, whatever their list of services are in the asset management process. Okay.
Hmm.
So the ones I work with are national.
All right.
There's national asset managers. That's typically what I've been doing is working with an asset manager. And then what they'll do is they'll subcontract in that state if they need someone. So they have services that they use.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. How did you learn about who to go with or how to find them?
Well, it was kind of like a referral thing, really. My buddy, the guy who was doing about 50 deals a year, he started to do this model, but in a different way. Like he would do the owner he would do like a rent to own per se. It's more of like a rent to own model, or
Okay.
They call it a land contract. So he would do it a little bit differently, and I just kind of like spinned it in a unique way. Anyway, he was my go-to guy. When I asked him, I said, "Hey, who's your asset manager?" I tried them. They were my first pick because it was a referral.
Yeah.
And I didn't like them.
Oh.
I didn't like them. They weren't good. They weren't good enough for me. They may have been good enough for him. They were not good enough for me.
Got it.
And I think an asset manager that can really jump on the phone in tough times is really important, especially to the homeowner. Yeah. I don't think a homeowner, if they're in a tough time or defaulting on a payment or something like that, they should be, going through a portal. I really think they should get on the phone with somebody. And that's what I like about this asset management company.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So then next question here, everyone's going to want to know, right? How do you find the properties to purchase?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, that's always the $1 million question. When someone comes into my coaching program and I'm helping people get started in real estate, they always wonder like, well, where do I start? Like, what state do I start in, and how do I find the properties? Mm-hmm. This is a great question. At the end of the day, as an investor, you are looking for a property that you're going to get a deal on. You can't just go to the MLS and buy a property for the price it says. I mean, you basically, if in an illustration would be as an investor, you're the Walmart, and you're selling retail, but you are the Walmart getting it at a discount. Mm-hmm. So that's the best way I can put it to you. So basically, the people who have the inventory, the sellers who have the inventory on the property, we get it from them at a discount for whatever's going on in their life. And we try to help our sellers, whether they're, there's health issues or, maybe a death in the family, a divorce, whatever the situation is. We particularly like to work with people who are stuck on taxes, like back taxes. Mm-hmm. And we help try to people find solutions for that, estates, stuff like that, probates. Okay. So that's typically how we find the property. But I will tell you this, for anyone who's maybe like thinking about this, is I would first start in your own backyard, like your own state, like know your market really well. There's properties in every state. And that's where the best place would be to start to learn the business. And then you can branch out from there.
Gotcha. Okay. So when you say like defaulting on taxes, is that defaulting on property taxes?
Yeah.
Or defaulting on personal taxes?
It would be, here's the unique thing about personal taxes. If it's a lien, if it becomes a lien on a property, any kind of tax, it's typically property tax. But if there was another kind of lien or judgment that is against the property, you could be able to find that out through a title search. Mm-hmm. But typically property tax is what we go for. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And those, I imagine you look under the county or whatever, figure out what properties are delinquent.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a whole host of services these days. Technology has really revamped that up. So yes, mm-hmm. You can go to the county and get free lists of these taxes. A lot of people don't know that. It's kind of interesting. Sometimes we'll get like really, intense or nasty, sellers on the other line where they're like, how do you know I owe my taxes? What is that? And it's all public record. Most people don't realize that. But and actually something that a lot of people don't understand is you can actually pay for someone else's taxes and get a rebate on interest back on that from the county.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically, what we do is we pursue those opportunities. And it sometimes there's a situation where a property's been sitting and it's an abandoned property. Could be a condemned property, a mold infested property, a burnout property, like there was a fire. So opportunities like that, properties just sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the property is not so bad, but it needs work. Today, there's more software that's available that these software companies pull data from the counties and aggregate it into a software. And that makes it a lot easier. I'll tell you that.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. Well, that's super cool.
Yeah.
So when you
Yeah.
find a property, let's say that's abandoned, and
Mhm.
let's just say it's got mold issues or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Right.
been abandoned for a reason, and now you're getting into there. You sometimes take on more headache than you realize.
Well, it can be, but those kind of problems, sometimes a lot of people run from those problems. The first people that run from those problems is retail buyers, like a
Mhm.
family looking to move into a new home, right? So their
Right.
first time homeowners are not going to buy that kind of property. So,
Right.
but yet the property is an eyesore. It needs to be fixed up and cleaned up, and a new family needs to get in there. So that's something that investors do. They fix up properties that need help. The reality is that those properties, because of the condition of work that's needed, those are the kind of properties you can get at a discount, because there's a
Okay.
lot of labor and work and materials, cost of goods that need go into a property like that to
Mhm.
make it, market ready and ready for a family to move into.
So are you typically buying a property like that, finding a contractor to fix it up, and then selling
Yeah.
it? Okay.
You can do it that way. I
Okay.
know people that do that. Actually, I have one of my clients in our program. It does it exactly just like you said. He actually buys the property with an issue, fixes it up with his contractor team, and then retails it. That's his model.
All right.
Not typically my model. My model is simply this: I like to find the property, and I don't do the construction work because I am mostly remote. I'm mostly virtual.
Mhm.
So I'm either, like right now, I'm in Uganda. I'm not near the property in the United States. And
Yeah.
having the management factor of looking after someone like a contractor is not so simple unless you're there
No.
nearby. Yeah.
No.
You sound like you have experience in that.
Oh my gosh, I'm working with him now on a commercial property. And even when I am
Right.
nearby, we just get
Yeah.
this like, hey, isn't this supposed to happen? And they're just shoulder
Exactly.
shrugs. Like, what are you gonna do?
Exactly.
"Oh,
Yeah.
nothing. That's what I'm gonna do.
It's
The only thing I can do
it's
right now.
really it's really difficult. So imagine that kind of stress and frustration and being completely virtual, like just out
Yeah.
of the state.
Right.
It's really difficult. So I don't do that personally. What I would do is I'd buy it and then I would turn around and sell it to a contractor who is going to fix it up. And
Gotcha. Okay.
I leave some meat on the bone for them because they need to make a profit. Of course, their goal is they're in business too. So you just want to leave enough meat on the bone for everybody to make a good deal out of it.
Gotcha. I love that analogy. So I guess how do
Mhm.
you figure out pricing for some of these things when you get them for essentially, I'm going to say pennies on the dollar, even though their dollar isn't necessarily worth that. But so
Yeah,
you get what you think is a deal, and now you have to find a contractor where you're going to make a profit on it, and they still think that what
right,
you're selling it for is a deal. Is that tough?
right. It's not tough when you know how to run the numbers.
Okay.
So a very simple illustration is if you know the market purchase price in that area is going for 300,000. You're going to have to get, based on your percentages, that property at a certain percentage to make the deal work to sell retail at 300,000.
Gotcha. Okay.
So
So you see this
yeah,
property, it's going to go roughly for 300,000, and you know it's going
right,
to take whatever 200,000 to get it to that level, and
yeah,
you're getting it for 20, so you can sell it for 50 and everybody still wins.
yeah, something like that.
Vaguely.
That's a great example. Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
I mean, I don't know if
At
the
the end of
numbers
the
work.
day,
Okay.
no, basically at the end of the day, it's all percentages, right? So it's
Mhm.
like, you have to, consider, if you are not rehabbing it yourself and managing it, then
Mhm.
you have to consider that contractor's percentages have to be able to fit into that deal so that it is a win-win when they turn around and sell it.
Gotcha.
Those are all just factors. But one of the most important things in that is knowing what the cost of goods are, like how much are windows,
Mhm.
floors, right? Paint, how much does it cost to do a kitchen and a bathroom, right?
Yeah.
Those kinds of things
It's
really
going
matter
up.
in that sense.
Or
Yeah,
has gone up.
true,
Maybe it's
true.
plateaued now, but
Yeah,
this
yeah.
past year's been rocketing up.
Yeah, it has been. Cost of goods, man, has been through the roof.
Hmm.
Through the roof. It's incredible. And it's interesting because there hasn't been much signs of it stopping. It's just
No.
constantly been going up.
Mm-hmm.
People ask me this all the time, James. They're like, "Oh, Nathan, what do you think is going to happen to the market? What do you think is going to happen to the housing market?" And I said, honestly, I don't think we're going back to 2008 and 10, which, at that
No.
time I was kind of just getting into, scaling up my real estate investing business. But I would say we're just in a little correction. That's essentially what happens when any time the market goes up. You can always expect it to come down, but I don't think we're going into any big recession in the housing market at this point. But prices go up. At the end of the day, over time. It's funny, James. I was watching a video about an interview debate with some kids from 1956. They were in high school, and they were talking about how much money. They were talking about how much money was made in a year, and I was just like, it was like $500, or things cost so cheap. Gum was 5 cents back then, right?
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. It was really interesting to see in perspective that at the end of the day, housing is just going to go up, and cost of food, and it's just part of that pattern. So
very true. So getting started in 2008, was that easier because there was more troubled properties, let's call them? Or
that's a good question. Actually, at that time, I was just coming out of being a mortgage broker. I was a mortgage broker at the time. So I was actually
okay. You're one of those guys, right?
I was if anybody has seen what movie is it? The Big Short.
The Big Short.
That movie. I was one of those guys. One of those guys where we were selling mortgages ice cream on a hot sunny day.
Yeah.
And it was very interesting because at the height of the market, I was actually at that time in my life, I was going to buy a 3-family unit. It was going to be my first 3-family. I had done some other deals with contractors, but I was going to buy my first 3-family. And actually, it was my ex-fiance's dad that told me not to buy it because the height of the market. It was really, really intellectual guy. He's the one who actually kind of got me started in real estate. James, it's really interesting. He told me in order to marry his daughter, I needed to read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So he's like, if you don't read this book, and I did, and then he got me more involved into real estate investing. But he was actually the one that convinced me not to buy a 3-family during that time. And he said, the market's going to change. The market's going to crash. And you don't want to you're buying it at the highest peak right now. Right. So when it comes down, you're going to lose. And you know what? I did look at a few properties, got his advice. I stopped looking. And then literally months later, the housing market was crashing. Everything was crashing, the recession. So I'm so glad I took his advice, because that probably would have saved me a property or two.
Was she ex-fiance at the time? Or
no, wait.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I don't even know actually. No,
okay,
probably not. No.
So the advice came
not.
regardless of where the relationship was.
Yeah, no, the advice was, I was seeing him so often. So I believe at that time we were together. And I'm trying to think of dates here in my head, but
right.
No, he was always a good friend and future father-in-law, I guess, per se, at that time. And so he really shed some light. He's a really smart guy. Like he knew he could see waves, he could see waves in markets, he was really intellectual like that. So, like I said, if it wasn't for him, I probably would have, been through a little crisis there myself.
Oh, interesting. So is he in real estate as well? Or
no, actually he did a few deals. He was a mortgage broker.
Okay.
He was a mortgage broker. He was also, he used to sell securities. So he did a few different things in his career. Mm-hmm. But at that time he was a mortgage broker, and he's the one who got me into being a mortgage originator and then a broker.
Gotcha.
And then it was while I was in that world of getting him, I was so young. I was a mortgage originator at like 17 years old.
Oh,
and then,
awesome.
I was really young. Yeah. And I became a mortgage broker at like 18 or some 19 or something like that. And then I started seeing what was happening. I started seeing these guys get these really big checks. And I'm like, hey, man, who are you? And what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm a real estate investor. So I was like, well, how does that work? And I started talking to my, my father-in-law at the time. And I said, how does this work? Like, how does this happen? And he's the one who really started pushing me and getting me exposed to that stuff. So
nice. That's super cool.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah. So with the mortgage thing, did you end up getting pushed out of the mortgage thing, or did you make the move before everything happened?
I left. Okay. What ended up happening, I'll tell you this, I did go down with the crash. Like I went down with it in the mortgage business because immediately all loans stopped.
Yeah.
The only reason why my phone was ringing was from previous customers, either really stressed out or angry that they needed to get out of the loans that they were in.
I bet.
What ended up happening in the industry was new regulation came in where you actually needed to go take a test to become a licensed mortgage broker. And that's actually when I decided to leave. I was just not because of any like external pressure from previous clients. I actually tried to serve them even more. I turned my entire Rolodex and portfolio of clients. I turned them over to my boss, who's a good friend of mine till this day. And I said, hey, man, I said, we need to put these people in a good package. And I continued to help those people get into a different loan during that time or do loan modifications. Mm-hmm. But I decided I didn't want to be in the mortgage business anymore at that time. I didn't want to be a broker, didn't want to go through the regulation. It was a time in my life. It was a season. And I wanted to do more of the real estate investing.
Gotcha. Okay. That's cool. So Tell us about when you first got started, you get out of the mortgage business, you're going to get into real estate investing. Do you have a nut to start investing, or do you have to try to borrow some money and do a little shell game to get going?
Yeah. So at that time, I did have money. I had made a bunch of money in the mortgage business. I also spent a lot of money too. I was young and silly and stupid, right? Yeah. Right. We all make those mistakes. Yeah. So I did. Yeah. I did have some capital, and I ended up buying some apartment complexes. They were small, like about a 12 unit and then a 24 unit. And sometimes I would do that with a partnership because I was very into travel. I still am. I'm addicted to travel, James. Like nice. It's like, yeah, I like to be remote. I like to move around a lot. I like to travel quite a bit. So I knew a partnership was going to be better for me because I had someone to go collect rents. I had someone like managing the property. Yeah. And I didn't have to do that responsibility. So, I did get into a few rentals. And then from there, that's when I actually was around that time, like 5 years had passed, and I started my own consultancy. Nice. I really enjoyed because over the years, James, so many people would ask me, I'd get invited to conferences. I'd get invited to speak at local meetup groups and stuff like this. And people would ask me like, hey, Nathan, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? Well, the reality is it took a lot of my time to help somebody else. And and sometimes, unfortunately, I would help people and they wouldn't do the work or the homework that I gave them. So it was really unfortunate.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was because of my model. I was basically doing it for free or, some kind of, partnership or something like that. But anyway, I ended up starting up my own consulting company, and I started helping people, close deals because that was their trigger. That was like made it real for them. That was like cash in the bank. They actually closed the deal, and that to me is probably one of the most rewarding things. My only way of giving back in this world and helping people change their life is through getting into real estate and closing deals and making money. And that's been going on now for over 10 years. I've helped people close their first deal, their 30th deal, their 100th deal. I mean, nice. So many. Yeah, it's great. So that's kind of my transition out of the mortgage business and into more real estate and consulting. Yeah.
All right. So for a first deal, for the people that are interested in getting into real estate investing, would you recommend going down the multi-unit apartment property type thing, getting into more of a fixer-upper thing, or getting into trying to flip a fixer-upper? I guess lowest hanging fruit, or dare I say easiest. I don't mean it to be like this is easy, but I mean, there's risk involved, but you know what I mean? What would you recommend for just a dip your toes in there, get used to the water kind of thing?
This is a great question. And James, just to put this into context, there are many education companies or gurus out there who teach this topic. And a lot of them teach this mindset or this pattern of like, learn it all, like learn every strategy. The reality is there's so many ways to do real estate. It can be overwhelming. It's very overwhelming.
I bet.
What I've done over the years, and I've taught people like apartments, I've taught people how to get into single family, and I don't teach rehabbing houses because I don't do that proficiently and well all the time, so I don't teach that. but I also don't think people should start there, even though they see it on TV and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
What I recommend to people and through my coaching programs, what I recommend to people is they start from the ground up. And what I literally mean by that is they start with land first. And they start,
okay.
Yeah. They start by working with land, knowing how that works, right? Most people buy houses and they don't even know how the land was acquired, right? But the reality is we teach them how to find motivated sellers with land and sometimes back taxes again, right? So back taxes or, that they haven't paid or they're just tired of holding land that they're not using.
Mm-hmm.
So we teach them how to find land. We get them into their first deal, and then we take them all the way up to 25 transactions. So they close 25 deals. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
After that, yeah. After those 25 deals, we then graduate them to another level, and they get to choose. So they choose if they want to go into single family housing or if they want to go into more cash flow like multifamily housing.
Mm-hmm.
So apartments and whatnot. And we've had people take different roads. Some go into apartments, some go into houses. What we do not teach is, I do have, team members on my team, but we don't teach it virtually as rehabbing property. We don't teach that virtually because that's very risky.
Yeah.
And so we don't teach that. We don't agree that someone should do virtual rehabbing. If you're going to do that, you should be there present every day, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's basically our model. And we take people all the way up through that model. Because after someone has done 25 transactions, James, they've got it. Like they know how to write a contract, they know how to talk to a seller, a buyer, a title company. They've got it. And then then we just change the property type. So we go from land to single family to multifamily. We just change the property type. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. To me, and I've dabbled in real estate, we'll call it 25 transactions to me over the course of anything less than 5 years seems like a lot to me. But something that you have going on, are you talking 25 transactions over 6 months or a year or something?
Actually, I wouldn't say 6 months, but I would say the majority of the people that who have done over 25 transactions have done it probably within less than 2 years.
Wow. That's one a month or faster than one a month. Wow.
And that's pretty much, I wouldn't say the average, but I'll tell you what, we had a guy he just crossed over 30 and he did it in less than a year.
Wow.
That's his work ethic. I can't control anybody's work ethic, but we've had some people who've been in the program for about a year and a half, and they're pretty much at the maybe 20, 22, 23. I'm just going off some of the current people that I know we have in our group. But yeah, I mean, some people can do it faster. I haven't seen anybody do it in like 6 months. I mean, that's not, I don't even think that's even realistic to do 25 deals. Now, your first deal, what we try to do is we try to help people get into their first property closed within 90 days. That's kind of real. That can be realistic. Yes.
Yeah. That alone is a feat though. Cause even this last property that I bought is a commercial property just recently. I want to say that I dinked around with them. Man, I bet it was 5 months. And it was purely bad communication on their broker's end.
Yeah.
It's like, I have this money. I want this property, but it's not like going to Walmart and just buying a box of diapers or something like that. There's this process and not return phone calls and stuff like this. And just kind of hemming and hawing kind of thing. Now, maybe, I guess you can tell me, I'm going to call them troubled properties for lack of a better phrase. Some of these different properties, maybe they expedite it because they want to solve whatever financial problem they have. I don't know if that's the case where these guys are just like, whatever.
Well, I will say probably I don't know how big your commercial property was, but I will say this, anything commercial does take a lot longer. Okay. It does.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it does. I mean, what we do with our clients when they first come into the program is we teach them like land, but for residential or recreational use. So they're not buying like big, like lots of farmland, like whole acreages and subdivisions or big commercial pieces of land. They're actually working on smaller lots. So typically the profit on each one can be on the low end, probably like 7,000 on the low end. Or maybe, it depends. On average, it could be 5,000, it could be 7,000. And then on the home run deals, you're probably looking at over 30,000. I mean, we just had someone who closed a deal 27,000, 21,000. You know, you do a few of those a year, you're calling it a
if you're
day.
doing one of those a month, I'm thinking you're doing okay.
Yeah. So we teach our clients to start off with those kinds of transactions. And then after they do the 25 deals, then they can get into, more commercial stuff, which does take a little bit longer to close, James. I mean, it does. I had a property. I just finished buying a senior care facility in Portugal, and that took a year to close. Like, wow. They are a lot slower there, but that literally took a year to close. And like you said, it's communication. They're very slow over there. You have to push them. But yeah, it was a whole complex. It was 26 apartments plus a restaurant and all commercial space, and another building with, rooms. So commercial does take a little bit longer. We don't teach people to get into that right away. You got to, work your way up to that,
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That is cool. So typical people that are jumping into your program, are they US based or are they international?
Yes, they're mostly US based. Yeah. I mean, I've had guys in there from Brazil. I've had a few people from Canada before. And I had one guy we had one or two guys from Germany in our group. They've all graduated. Actually, we have no international people in our group, except me, but we have everyone's in the United States. And they're just burning their deals. They're doing phenomenal. It's probably one of the joys in my life, honestly. Like, there's so much other frustration and stress going on, but that group that we have, they're so fired up because every day people are posting their activity, what they're closing, what their challenges are, nice. I mean, it's on fire. Like, people are all excited. Memes and emojis are going. And it's so fantastic because they're really encouraging each other and celebrating with each other, because deals are closing every week in our group all the time. It's nice. It's so unique. Yeah. It's a little unique thing that we've really created. And I love it. It's helping people really create for example, one of our members was earning close to 6 figures in one of their businesses. She had a business close to 6 figures. And she stopped the business. She closed it this year, not because of COVID. She closed the business because she was making more in real estate. She replaced her income, surpassed her income. She's like, forget it. I don't need to go do that other business anymore. I can work from home. I can be with my family. Yeah. So that's a really cool thing.
That's super awesome. And the majority of the deals that these people are going through, are they are they more virtual, or things where they've never seen the land or never seen the property?
All virtual.
It's all virtual.
All virtual. Yeah.
That is incredible.
Yeah. I'm a big believer, lead by example. You should, if I'm doing it, then you should be able to do it. Right. So everybody in our group, actually, there probably is one or two that actually, they live in a certain state and they invest. Actually, I can think of one right now. We got a guy named Corey who lives in Utah, and he actually, invests in that market. He's starting with the land. And he's already closed, I think, 6 deals in the past few months. I would say probably within the past 4 to 5 months or so. And it's only in his state. He decided to stay in his state because he knows it so well. And then we have other people who, they live in, North Carolina, they invest in Florida. They choose different states. So
that is super cool. That's impressive.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing what you could do with technology these days,
Yeah. It's funny that you say all this, because I was just at my closing Friday. So whatever, I don't know, a few days ago. And I was amazed. I was expecting them to say, here are the documents for you to sign over an email or some secure portal or something like that. But they're like, nope, here's the scheduled closing at this title company. And I was thinking, we still do this? We still use pen to sign stuff and have piles of paper for everybody in the transaction. Right. It seems so archaic to me.
It's so true. There's a lot of title companies that are still like that, and they're not using any digital software. And the truth of it is, it's not because the county, it's because the title company hasn't made the transition. They're business owners too. And they still have older processes, at the end of the day. So it's because some counties allow complete, e-documentation, e-signature, but it's the title company that doesn't. So yeah, they're still out there, bud.
It was so interesting to me. And you see what the title company is making. And I'm like, they're kind of putting together this dog and pony show. It reminded me of when you go to the doctor and they weigh you and they check your height. I'm like,
Yeah.
what would that number have to be for my height to change where you're like, well, we have a problem? Like, we're just going through motions here so that I'm here longer. So I feel like I'm getting something.
Right.
In the end, like, this is a waste of time.
Exactly. Yeah. So all our members, they do everything remotely.
Interesting. That is so cool.
They never have to go step on the land unless they chose to, like if they really care to. But yeah, we teach them not to. You don't have to. You can get everything online. And then after someone graduates from the program, after they close their 25 deals, what we, depending on what vertical they go into. So if they go into single family or multifamily, then we would say, okay, now you're into, let's say, commercial residential. Let's say they're buying a 10 unit or a 20 unit complex of apartments. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you are going to go look at the property. So there's a different dynamic there. So sometimes either myself or I have a coach in my team that will fly out to their area and go walk the property with them, like a multi-unit complex or something like that, show them what to look for, give them that real life experience of what, pros and cons and things to look out for along the way.
All right. I want to talk to you about a couple more things, and we're burning time here because it's a lot of information. So thank you for that.
Sure.
First thing I want to talk about is other people's money. In the rich dad, poor dad thing, he kind of dabbled in that, but it wasn't a clear checklist of what to do for using other people's money. Because a lot of these properties, you're talking a big nut, especially down payment, coming up with that. Is that something that you teach? And I guess lowest hanging fruit, what's the easiest way for people to get started in that? Or just even wrap their head around it? Let's start there.
Yeah, this is it's a great question, James. And it's something that I'll put it to you very simply. When people come and start in real estate, they start with the capital that they have or they have access to. However, if someone takes real estate investing seriously and wants to build it as a full-time business and that's all they want to do. The reality, James, is if you had $10 million in your checking account right now and you said, I'm going to do real estate full-time, you're going to run out of $10 million. See, you may go and buy a $5 million property and then maybe a few $100,000 property, maybe $500,000 property. You're going to run out of money no matter what. It's just inevitable, right? Because you're in the real estate investing business. And actually, you should run out of money. The idea is not to hold money. The idea is to push money into the economy, right? And
have that money grow into more money. Yeah, exactly.
So what ends up happening to every investor who's getting to that point of scale and growth is they have to raise money. There's no way you're going to get to that point. So I do teach people this, but it's a more one-on-one private basis. James, not to tout toot my own horn here or stand on a soapbox, but I've raised millions of dollars over the years.
Nice.
A good friend of mine, his name is David Lindahl. He owns over probably 9,000 apartments now. And primarily like Texas and Alabama and Georgia, the southern states. He owns over 9,000 apartments. He's raised over $400 million. He taught me how to raise money. I've had the pleasure of working with him over the years, and he's just been a good friend. And if it wasn't for him, I never would have probably raised the money that I have, or at least had the mindset. He gave me that mindset of how to do it. And that's been really important. So I wouldn't recommend to anyone just starting out to go raise money right away because they don't maybe have the experience right off. But I will say this in summary, that at some point, you got to learn how to raise money for real estate. And I do recommend Robert Kiyosaki's book, OPM. It's a great book.
Okay.
It really is.
Yep.
Yeah. But raising money and being responsible for someone's capital is not something to take lightly.
Right.
And you want to make them a return on their money and secured by real estate. So there are certain things you do have to be mindful for. There are also SEC guidelines that you have to be aware of and follow, depending on the structure of the deal. But at the end of the day, I would say, with very simply in mind, yes, you would eventually have to raise money for deals. I've done it. I've done partnerships. I've done 50-50 deals, 50-50 splits. I've done that before. So It's definitely needed as you grow and scale your business.
All right. The next thing I want to ask you about is risk. So to do a lot of these real estate transactions, you're talking about pretty big numbers. And a lot of people, regardless of where that number is coming from or how tangible it is, because a lot of it's just on paper, especially virtually, they just
Yeah.
don't necessarily have the stomach for it to even wrap their head around what's happening. So
Yeah,
how
that's
do you
true.
help people get over that either fear of risk or being too cautious, like not understanding or maybe not believing that a deal can be that good for them kind of thing?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. It's actually your question leads up to why I created the Fearless Millionaire brand in the first place.
I love the title. It's incredible.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I wish I could. I wish I could take the credit for it, but I didn't come up with the name. But my good buddy, he's a marketer. His name's Ryan Dice. He actually is the one who I went to him and I said, hey, I have this desire to help these investors who I see over and over again at seminars, and they still haven't done a deal. They've been at it for 5 years or 3 years, whatever it is, and they still haven't crossed it. And it's not about knowing how to do real estate. It's not about the strategy. It's actually in the mind. And a lot of people struggle with that. A lot of people are, maybe afraid to look stupid. Am I saying it the right way? Am I asking the right questions? What happens if they say no? Fear of rejection. There's so much that goes into that, and you really have to learn. It's a skill set that is not taught in school, and it's a skill set that you really have to learn along the way. It's like an apprenticeship type of position. It's like you have to learn how to handle sellers and buyers and raising capital. That's not an easy feat for a lot of people unless you already have tough skin, because it does come with its challenges.
Right. All right. So I imagine, so that's not a rare thing. I imagine most people that come to you have a little bit of apprehension, or maybe they have a spouse that's a little less risk,
I would say
risk averse.
Well, James, I would say everybody that comes to me for help in this area, they are in some way hesitant or something mentally is stopping them. And that's because of the brand. The brand puts it out there. Like if you're having roadblocks mentally and you're stuck and you're just having this fog of how to actually close your first deal, the message is out there for that. So those type of people will be attracted to me. And that's the people I really like to help. I have helped other investors who do much bigger deals, and they'll have me look at their deal and, it's like, oh, thanks, Nate. And they're on their way. But there is so much more fulfillment for me personally when I can help someone get out of their other business and do this full time. There's such a joy in it where I see an email come in that is, Nathan, thank you so much for your dedication to the group and coaching me throughout this process, because you've changed my life. Basically what we're doing here is we're creating investors for life. This is not a job. This is a business, and that's creating not just income, that's creating financial freedom. And that's the beautiful part. That's why I do it. It's literally helping people create financial freedom for themselves, being in the number one asset class in the world, and that's real estate.
Yeah, that's super cool. That's the name of the game in business. It's so interesting. When I'm teaching my business planning classes, I ask people what's the one reason why you'd start your own business. And that word freedom comes up all the time. And yet people are like, I'm going to start this retail company selling these little gifts or trinkets or whatever they're interested in, which is fine. Sure. Super cool. Then you ask them, great, how many employees you're going to have? And they're like, I don't want to deal with employees. And you're like, you're building your own prison. That's not freedom at all. That's the opposite of freedom. Forget how much money you're going to make if you're stuck in this retail store forever. That's the opposite of your goal. So though you may like trinkets and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting that with real estate, I think that's a huge attractant, is you can make some money and you're not necessarily shackled to a given time or even a given location, which is incredible.
Yeah. With definitely the way I teach all our members, we teach them only virtual real estate in the beginning. And then down the line, if they want to go into something more commercial, then we'll make flights out to the location and walk the property with them. And because that's a little bit more intense. But we teach everybody to start virtually, work from home, make a full-time income from doing this.
That's cool. That's super cool. I want to ask you a question that I would assume is fairly common with people that are in industries like yours. Out of every, let's say 100 people that sign up for something like yours to get this help, how many people just fall off the bus because they're
Yeah,
scared or they're just don't believe
right.
it, whatever, for whatever reason.
So true. That's a very true thing, and that's actually one of the reasons why many years ago, and growing up with like my ex-father-in-law, who kind of got me into this industry, I decided 10 years ago in my consultancy business not to sell a course.
Okay.
There are many people out there who sell courses, and that's all they do. They're in the
Right.
business of selling. Here's the training. It's $2,000, and there you go. And that's all they do in business. Okay, they're in the education business. I decided not to do that. Actually, all the training and the modules and all the content and the contracts we give away for free. We have a members area. They go through step by step, video by video, with contracts and everything there. But we give all that for free. When someone's in our coaching program, it has to be a life transformation. It's not just, hey, go DIY yourself in a course and be left to yourself. I don't think that approach works very well, and the success rate is very low in that model.
Interesting. Okay.
It's very
believable.
Low. It's very low. And the way to prove that is, most people buy books that they don't read. They buy titles, and they buy
oh
it
my
it's a
gosh.
good title. Yeah.
So true. I've given my book away looking for reviews and stuff like that to friends, and they're like, wait, I don't read.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, most people don't, read the books they buy, and it just is there. And that can happen with, courses as well. Like, it sounds good in the moment, but then you never really get. I've done the same thing. So we decided 10 years ago not to do that. And what we do is we immerse the person into the mindset, into the group, and then that ongoing coaching and action. We meet every week for an activity update. That means we go around the room, and everybody shares their activity and what they've done, what their challenge is, what they're closing on, what their profit is, right? And everybody gets a real sense of victory that way. I find that model has been really helpful to us and to our clients. Happily, we have more of a less unsuccessful rate. I've never really calculated the numbers, but I remember the names. I remember the names, James. I remember the names of the people who have given up.
Okay.
I remember the names of the people who said, Nathan, maybe this just isn't for me. I gotta stop doing this. And I remember the names. I don't remember them as a percentage. And it's unfortunate, but it's not their thing. The good thing, what I know is we have more people successful in doing deals than we have those of maybe dropping out and giving up.
Yeah, I can see even in the business planning classes that I would teach way back pre-COVID, if we had half the class drop out or only half the class, it was considered a good day. And that was just for business planning. Yeah. Forget about actual creation of the business.
Wow.
Sometimes people just saw, usually you could tell by it was an 8-week course. And by week 2 into 3, you could tell the people that were driven, they were going to make it. And the others are just like, whoa. You want me to figure out how I'm going to make money in this business?
Right.
In this business that I'm creating? Whoa.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Like
if you're willing to do the work, then you can get the success. But if you're not willing to do the work, what are you doing here?
That's it. At the end of the day, because we can't control, unfortunately, I can't control someone's work ethic. I can't, force people, but what I realized is when, for example, there's people in our group who are closing a deal a week, and that inspires the person that is just starting, but the person that may have closed a few deals to continue to push forward. So it's not Nathan saying, I just closed 26 apartments and all this stuff. And I just got another deal this week. I closed 3 deals. I'm closing 3 deals on Friday. It's not Nathan coming from Nathan, the authority figure who got you here in the first place. It's actually other members who are sharing their real results. That's inspiring to them. That's inspiring to the people who are just getting started, like knowing there's other people like them that can, their struggle too, and they can build up their business also.
That's awesome. That's super cool. We're running out of time here, Nathan. So how can people find you?
Sure. They could easily do a Google search for Fearless Millionaire.
All right.
They'll come up to our YouTube channel. I got a YouTube channel, but also the website. The website is where they can learn more, fearless-millionaire.com. fearless hyphen millionaire.com. They can go there. There's a
All
bunch
right.
of resources on there. But again, we don't sell any courses. So if someone's interested in getting started in real estate, they can expect to speak to one of my team members and see if it's a good fit for them.
Nice. That's super cool. I'm excited just to share this with the world, one, and the whole real estate game. It's fun. It's
congratulations on your deals. You just closed one on Friday. That's awesome. Great.
Yeah. I learned. It's funny because every time I do one, I learn something. And usually it's me learning that I don't like brokers.
Yeah.
But, yeah, whatever. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But in the end, it's cool. It's exciting. It's fun. It's not a 9-to-5 thing. It's more, I don't know. You feel like there's more of a no limits, which is attracting
absolutely.
to you.
Well, I think you're doing the right thing. I mean, you obviously have your primary business, and then you're taking, building up your asset class with real estate. And that's just a solid, time and time again, it's a solid investment. Yeah.
I had a guy I sold a motorcycle to, and he pulled in and he had this fancy truck, fancy trailer, buying a motorcycle for his kid. And it was like way overkill for picking up this motorcycle. Sure. And I'm like, this is cool little setup you got here. And he's like, it was like he skipped about 20 minutes of conversation. And he said, the best advice I ever got was to have at least 8 sources of income. And I'm like, all right. So, and it was interesting because I was thinking about it and I was like, and we chatted a little bit after that, but it was funny how he almost knew from business mindset what I was asking him, which I didn't mean to be asking him that. I was just really impressed with the trailer. It was cool setup. Yeah. Cool setup. But he's like, I got bank because I prepared myself and took the steps necessary to be able to have bank and this freedom. I don't know. He probably drove 6 hours to pick up that motorcycle. Wow. This huge, man, you could sleep in that thing. It was beautiful. Beautiful. Wow. But it was kind of funny because it was one of those, like, you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket kind of thing. Because you have diversity in your revenue. So true. Because who knows what the market's going to do in a given area, right? There's a lot of companies, 2008, they took a dive.
That's very true. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of risky investments out there. I mean, one of the riskiest right now, which is highly talked about and hyped about, is cryptocurrency. Oh my gosh. There's a lot of, but it's new and it's really, catching on. But it's not as secure as real estate. Real estate is a little slower, but it's still a valuable thing. And there's also equities. I mean, people still, day trading and stocks and bonds and all that. So there's even that area too. But the most important thing is just, being invested is really important. Just investing and taking the risks and investing is important. So not exclusively trading time for money, I guess is the big takeaway, right? Absolutely. Yes.
Everybody's got the same amount of time, and
so true.
That's the way it goes, right? This has been awesome, Nathan. Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been great.
This has been Authentic Business Adventures, the business program that brings you the struggle stories and triumphant successes of business owners across the land. We are underwritten locally by the Bank of Sun Prairie. If you're listening or watching this on the web, which I'm sure you are, if you could do us a huge favor, give a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and of course, share this with your entrepreneurial friends, as well as those that are looking to get into the real estate game, because it's so much fun. Plus, you can make some bank on it, so that's cool. My name is James Kademan, and Authentic Business Adventures is brought to you by Calls on Call, offering call answering and receptionist services for service businesses across the country, on the web at callsoncall.com, as well as Draw In Customers Business Coaching, offering business coaching services for entrepreneurs looking for growth, on the web at drawincustomers.com. And of course, the Bold Business Book, a book for the entrepreneur and all of us, available wherever fine books are sold. We'd like to thank you, our wonderful listeners, as well as our guest, Nathaniel Amaral, the international real estate investor, also known as the Fearless Millionaire. Nathan, can you tell us that website one more time?
Yeah, it's fearless-millionaire.com.
Perfect. I love it. Past episodes can be found morning, noon, and night. The podcast link found at drawincustomers.com. Thank you for listening. We will see you next week. I want you to stay awesome. And if you do nothing else, enjoy your